New Affinity, Hardened Scales versus Esper Control. Have a look at this one.
How Esprit is it? Is it like Olivier Varel, who is just playing a Swamp and 2 or 3 black cards?
Nah, man. No. Get out of here with that. It is full-on Esper. It's so Esper, it has a card in the main deck with the word Esper on it. Esper, Charm, Kaya, Orzhov, Usurper. Bunch of other black cards spread across the main deck and the sideboard there, including 3 copies of Nihil's Spellbomb, which is a good choice in this graveyard-heavy metagame that we've got.
Esper Charm, it sounds like Guillaume Wafotapa is back, but it is actually a Spanish player that is actually doing insanely well with this interesting take on the format.
So João Andrade, I can tell you he picked up that draw earlier on, which has put him into a bracket that has sort of lined him up against a lot of control decks, even though he picked up the draw in Limited, Simon.
Yeah, and that's not good news when you're Hardened Scaled, because you don't want to play against the blue-white control decks.
You don't want to play against the Supreme Verdict decks, but that is the world in which Andrade lives here. Off to the races now, an Ancient Stirrings and a Mox Opal with now a Metallic Mimic joining the party. A slower start from Garcia Gonzalez there with only a couple of lands. Here's a Walking Ballista. For 0?
Yep, I would assume that Metallic Mimic has called Construct.
All right, that makes a lot of sense. That's going to give the Walking Ballista at least one counter here. But, a nice little 2-for-1 here in the form of Path to Exile from Sergio Garcia Gonzalez, meaning that Walking Ballista enters the battlefield as a 0/0. And
but you get a forest.
You do get a forest. You do get a forest. Is that a fair trade? I don't know.
Reparations.
In any case, João Andrade is back to not having anything meaningful going on the battlefield. And Garcia Gonzalez here, we'll see what his hand looks like, because he's got to be pushing towards something, and I think that something here is Teferi.
Also has a Supreme Verdict. Of course, the issue with the Verdict is that if there's really a big Hangerback Walker, then you can be in trouble. Also, Inkmoth Nexus is very hard to kill with Sorcery Speed removal.
And I can tell you that that card that you mentioned there in Hangerback Walker is in João Andrade's hand. Now, no copy of Hardened Scales, and that does mean that this deck isn't firing on all cylinders. It's playing from a little bit of a less of an advantage, but I can see here that Andrade looks very keen indeed to get that Hangerback Walker online, and then maybe follow it up with an Arcbound creature of some type.
With Hardened Scales, it's something between 4 and 6 cylinders. Without Hardened Scales, maximum a 2-cylinder engine.
All right. So how do we get to the full 8 or 12-cylinder engines?
Multiple Hardened
I
Scales.
see. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you get the full V12 humming along once you get that second copy, that good enchantment out. But right now here, we have Arcbound Worker coming down. Looks like Arcbound Ravager is also going to join the party. So Gonzalez here is going to be in... it's Walking Ballista instead. This makes the Supreme Verdict in his hand a lot more appetizing.
I don't get that final choice there. Why don't you play the Arcbound Ravager with in combination with Arcbound Worker? That's 3 counters. That's 4 on Hangerback Walker, leaving at least 4 1/1s after a Supreme Verdict that, as we know, control decks have to basically spend another mass removal on.
So Andrade, they're not really playing around an incoming sweeper, which we know Gonzalez has in hand. However, he needs the 4th land to cast it. I don't think it's on top of his library here with that opt. He spent a long time thinking about it. Maybe something else potentially. Yes, a Path to Exile. Oh! And the perfect card off the top there in Field of Ruin. So he can really ruin Andrade's board here with a Supreme Verdict. Do you fire it off here, Simon?
Absolutely. Just imagine if that Arcbound Ravager comes down and both of these XX creatures are threatening to grow. Especially the Hangerback Walker is a big problem for you.
Looks like Gonzalez is... Oh, no, he's not going to do it, Simon. He's not going to do it, and he may pay for that dearly here as Andrade untaps draws, and we know he's got an Arcbound Ravager in hand. Let's see what he can stitch together here this turn after a real second chance here, I have to say.
Yeah, I'm getting quite concerned here, not only because of the threat of Thopter tokens, but also that Inkmoth Nexus on the battlefield. Of course, João is not just going to go all in and lose against Path to Exile. But if Sergio ever taps out and he doesn't have Field of Ruin active, then João can slow roll that Arcbound Ravager to get in for 10 poison.
Well, both players here taking different tacks, which means the texture of this match still remains very much up in the air here. It's interesting. It's like two swordsmen kind of dancing around each other, finding their footwork, getting their range, Simon, before they figure out exactly how they want to attack. And this attack right now from Andrade, two lowly 1/1s coming in, and Garcia Gonzalez has a think about what he wants to do. What he wants to do is take 2 damage. And the follow-up play, an Arcbound Ravager. So maybe Gonzalez looking to activate that Field of Ruin here on the Inkmoth Nexus. Both players going to get a basic. That means that next turn we can have that Supreme Verdict come down. But that is a little bit, at this stage, is it even going to be that good? Gonzalez needs to remove the Arcbound Ravager. Does he just snap off the path?
Path to exile on either Arcbound Ravager or maybe even better on Hangerback Walker. I think you have to target the Hangerback Walker just to be absolutely safe that nothing remains on the battlefield. And also this Field of Ruin was well timed. You don't want your opponent to be able to activate Inkmoth Nexus, make grow the Ravager, and your Field of Ruin activation would be countered on resolution.
So now we have one Thopter, of course, that Path to Exile not resolving as the Hangerback Walker got sacrificed to the Arcbound Ravager here, and this is probably going to be the easy Supreme Verdict of Sergio Gonzalez, Garcia Gonzalez's life. And we'll see what Andrade has to respond to it here. Going to sacrifice something to the Arcbound Ravager. Going to gain a couple of counters. First, thanks to its own ability. Second, thanks to the modular. Thopter, of course, going to pump up that Ravager as well. And then all of them go on the Walking Ballista for a grand total of 5 damage going upstairs to Gonzalez. So getting a little bit of value while he can, Simon, but this does remove a lot of the equity that he can hope to reap from that Inkmoth Nexus.
Yeah, and João has nothing. He just has a random card from the top of his deck, gets in for 2 infect after having dealt only 7 points of damage. Sergio must be feeling really good about this game.
Welding Jar in hand here for Andrade. Not the action-packed draw he was hoping for. In hand now for Garcia Gonzalez is Snapcaster Mage and Nihil Spellbomb.
We've mentioned how this is not a matchup. You are happy about the matchup overall, but I also don't quite understand how Andrade just exposed all of his creatures to a Supreme Verdict.
So Garcia Gonzalez, as you saw, Cryptic Command, Vendilion Click, and Snapcaster Mage in hand. Here is the old Snip Snap, and that's going to Path to Exile the Inkmoth Nexus.
Yeah. So even the poison points are not going to matter. I actually thought it was 4 poison, but I might be mistaken.
So, beat down by Thiago Chan here by the look of things. In he comes for 2. That's the fallback position of the control decks. They can poke in, nickel and dime you down. Or I guess pound and penny you here in the UK. I'm not sure. I'm not sure on how that works. And a Nihil Spellbomb to follow things up as well. Not the highest impact card in this matchup, but it does cycle away, Simon.
Yeah. Something that I really like about the Esper control decks, I'm not a big fan of including a basic swamp, but with the amount of Field of Ruins that you play yourself, and also the occasional Ghost Quarter or Field of Ruin from the opponent, it is just a really nice way to fix your splash with just a very few sources. To
unlock that mana, exactly right. Here's a Cryptic Command now that's going to get rid of that animation module, and Andrade really playing on fumes, it has to be said. He's got a he's going to be facing down a V-Click soon. Garcia Gonzalez is going to be able to draw another card with that Nihil Spellbomb. Ships it back to Andrade, who, what's his plan A here? What can he even do to stitch together some kind of a battle plan?
Sideboarding.
Okay, all right. Well, simple as that. Simon's not so much a glass half empty person as a glass 3/4 empty. And a real straight shooter is the diplomatic way to describe Simon Gertzen, ladies and gentlemen. Calls it like he sees it. And I think that, jokes aside, I think you're onto something here, because this one looks to be in the books here. Sergio Garcia Gonzalez ahead on cards. He's got pressure on the battlefield. He's got answers for what Andrade is working with. Look at this. Got removal for days. Fatal Push, Path to Exile, Snapcaster Mage to do it all again. Here's a Walking Ballista. A Hangerback Walker, I should say.
Yeah, maybe as a good metric, if your blue-white control deck or Esper control opponent has more creatures than you.
You're in trouble.
You're playing Hardened Scales.
Yeah.
You're not doing well.
Yeah, something's going wrong. I mean, if you're playing Ad Nauseam, fine. No problem there. But if you're playing a creature-based deck, yeah, something really gone wrong here. Snapcaster Mage is going to be able to flash back that Path to Exile, which means those Hangerback Walker's going to die for no value. In comes the Vendilion Click, giving him a click over the ear hole now for 3 damage.
One card that can help the Hardened Scales deck to beat Control in Game 1 is Animation Module. But Andrade didn't find that early enough. So now, with that few resources, even drawing great cards turn after turn is not going to beat a full Esper control deck that has all the mana and a Snapcaster Mage and basically just the much better top deck potential.
All right, here's the snap, and away goes the second Hangerback Walker thanks to that Path to Exile. Arcbound Ravager comes down, but meets an opt from Garcia Gonzalez, who has the Fatal Push and is going to be able to deal with this 2-drop very, very easily indeed.
Yeah, if he even wants to now, doesn't really bother him. There's also the Welding Jar to consider, which until now hasn't really done anything because Path to Exile has exiled a bunch of cards.
Oh, how about a Kaya, Orzhov Usurper? Not an extremely powerful card on the face of it, but in Standard, it's played a bit of a role in the Esper control decks that run the format there. And in Modern as well, so many important permanents cost 1 or fewer. Death's Shadow. The list goes on, Simon.
Lantern of Insight, Noble Hierarch,
Savannah Lions.
Amulet of Bloom.
Yeah, she's doing very well. Yeah, she's doing really well.
Aether Vial.
Aether Vial?
Champion of the Parish.
Okay.
Curse Catcher.
Nah, I mean, unless you're playing against Corbin Corset Hosler. Unless you're playing against the old Chosler there, it's not going to do too much.
I guess the Hardened Scales deck that we're watching is actually full of 1 casting cost cards.
The other thing about Kaya is just incidental graveyard hate. Eat up a Phoenix, eat up a Prized Amalgam, gain you some life. It's not a bad call. Any Planeswalker that costs 3 or fewer is always worth a second look.
Kaya was definitely underestimated.
I think that's from a flavor perspective, that's perfect.
The Obsidian didn't see it coming.
I mean, no one saw it coming, right?
BBD didn't see it coming.
Oh no, poor BBD. Oh, he didn't deserve it, Simon. He doesn't deserve it. Snapcaster Mage offering the trade here with an Arcbound Ravager, but Andrade's got one better with the Pendelhaven.
Yeah, that wasn't a very profitable block, but it did protect the Kaya.
That's the most important thing here. The Ghost Assassin sticks around for a little longer. How can you even assassinate a ghost? Come on.
I agree, but I'm not a flavor judge. So.
I mean, are we playing by D&D rules? That she's just got silvered daggers? Has she paid her 300 gold pieces to have her daggers silvered so they can deal damage to spectral spooks?
I think it's the purple stuff around her right arm.
No, well, see, I'm missing that completely because I can't even see it in that colour line. In comes the Vendilion Click. Upstairs goes Kaya. Exile that card there. And, of course, round out the turn with a Polluted Delta. Just a Fatal Push in hand. Garcia Gonzalez sandbagging that one, of course. Doesn't do too much in the face of the Welding Jar.
Oh, but we will see Fatal Push trade with Welding Jar or not. And then Kaya is going to ultimate. -5.
-5 get you. You've got 500,000 cards in your exile zone. And Sergio Garcia Gonzalez picks up game number 1. In very handy circumstances, just kind of ran his opponent out of resources there, Simon. Exactly what the Esper deck wants to do.
Playing a bit of Esper aggro in the end.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, getting it done with a 3-1 in the air. So well done indeed to Sergio Garcia Gonzalez. We'll be back with more from him, of course, in just a few moments. We've got to go to a break, my friends, but stick around. More magic coming your way after Life Forms, Simon. Not beep-boop robot men like you.
Anyway,
Arcbound Ravager comes down. Another robot, Simon.
I was actually a bit surprised that Andrade didn't just play his Arcbound Worker on turn 1. Getting a little bit of a damage race going, especially the combination of Arcbound Worker plus Arcbound Ravager, I find a pretty good start, pretty safe from most removal spells that the Esper Control deck has early on. So actually that animation module might have been the reason, wanting to get a little bit extra value out of that.
Yeah, it looks like that the value train is going to start to pull out of the station here. Animation module into an Arcbound Worker. And so even without the Hardened Scales, we're starting to see the synergy-focused gameplay of the Hardened Scales deck do its thing. Although Path to Exile from Garcia Gonzalez is going to mean that things don't quite go to plan for João.
honestly, this is much better than the path to exiles we saw in Game 1, because the existence of animation module means you can use your mana to get 1/1 servo tokens, and it's definitely possible for the Hardened Scales player to just say, I'm not going to expose any other threats to the board. I'm just going to use the 3 untap ability to effectively proliferate onto one of my existing creatures.
Simon, in the last game you mentioned the fact that animation module is one of the ways for the Hardened Scales deck to kind of get under the, in the same way we'd see something like a Bitter Blossom or an early Planeswalker sneak under the counter magic of the Esper control deck. Animation module, a threat from a different angle and also at a very cheap price.
And what we highlight there is the fact that it doesn't give Hardened Scales a way to inevitability over Esper control. That would be laughable. But it does suddenly offer a toolbox to at least compete for the early and mid game.
So attacks now for Andrade as he pokes in with his little 1/1s here. And you can see Garcia Gonzalez in hand. A bunch of 4-drops and 5-drops. Early interaction in the form of Logic Knot. But a card like Kalidas is actually really going to hold down the ground quite well. Big body, lifelink as well. And the Exile Clause not super relevant in this matchup. Except for, Simon, if you'd let me finish, the modular ability.
Every creature in the Hardened Scales deck.
Except for the modular... Let me finish. Except for the modular ability of the Arcbound Worker, the Arcbound Ravager, the dying trigger of the Hangerback Walker, and that's it. I'm finished.
Yep. Just those 3 cards.
Just those 3 cards. So not every creature, because it doesn't affect Walking Ballista. Riley win, Simon lose.
Yeah, I mean, I just glanced at the deck list. That Kalitas is a beating.
Yeah, man, I pulled out of that sentence so fast. I was like, yeah, no, that's just for Dredge and whatever else for is it Phoenix? And then I was, oh, wait, whoa, no, stop, pull out, cancel everything. But no, look, no one noticed, so that's fine. There it is, Kalitas, the Trader of Get. I mean, a big card in Standard during its time, but it seems to play in Jund, and now getting it down out of the sideboard of a blue-white control deck is not what I thought we'd be seeing today, Simon.
No, I also wasn't, and you actually see this animation module play that I described, but it's a lot weaker when there's a Kalitas on the other side of the table.
Yeah, big old life-linking body there, and of course another way to eke out value. And we talk about cards and in decks that diversify the threat portfolio. You know that against Esper Control, you're going to be playing against a bunch of Planeswalkers, a bunch of removal, sweepers, what have you. When you get to a post-board situation, when cards like Kalitas, Baneslayer Angel, and Geist of Saint Traff, whatever, are coming in out of the board, it means that you can't expect to play the same game plan even, against these Esper or blue-white decks post-board.
Maybe the most important point here is that it's so difficult to beat creatures out of an almost creatureless deck game 1. Because how do you sideboard? You're always the one that's playing this guessing game. And even if you know that there are some potential creatures to come in, if we simplify things and just say, exactly there's one Kalitas, how do you even sideboard? Do you bring in dismembers that are otherwise going to be dead? Or do you say, this card is so good against me that I have to sideboard it? And here, this attack is just basically terrible.
I don't know what was going on there, because it not only exiles the Arcbound Worker, meaning that there's no triggers from the modular ability, but there's also a zombie in play.
So there should be 2 zombies in play, right? One for the Arcbound Worker and one for the Walking Ballista, because it dies before Kalitas gets its final point.
Okay, so we're just fetching out those zombie tokens. There we go. Okay, so there they are. So that's a pretty poor exchange there for João Andrade, getting a 3 for -1.
That's more like the 4 for 1.
Yeah,
or
I don't know what's going on, to be honest. But in any case, Garcia Gonzalez in a commanding position now, resolving Jace, the Mind Sculptor, and having 2 Zombarinos there to protect the greatest Planeswalker of all time. And things really aren't panning out well for the Portuguese player to the left of your screen. Has a full grip, but Simon, not a lot of action in it that's actually going to have much of an impact.
No, actually holding Nature's Claims for Stony Silences that haven't appeared. So
we talked about the... one of the wrinkles in this tournament being open deck lists, and players do have access to the starting 60s of both players and then the names of the cards in the sideboard of both players here. And you can see these lists right now with the Cardboard Live app. If you just click on your screen there, you'll see it, or if you're on mobile, you just need to activate the app with that little icon down the south. without giving you specific numbers, obviously those numbers will come to light tonight later on Saturday evening. But Sergio Garcia Gonzalez is playing a big sideboard with a lot of one-ofs. And so you look at a card like Stony Silence, you don't know how many are actually in the list. Is he playing 3? Is he playing 1? Mm-hmm. You don't know.
Can you do me a favor and count the number of lines?
There are 12.
Isn't it 13 even?
Is it 13? 13 different cards.
So when you see an open deck list with 13 sideboard cards, you are somewhat sure that most of them are one-offs.
It's either all one-offs, it's all one-offs with 2 2-offs, or all one-offs with 1 3-off.
Yeah, and that's basically it.
And those are the only configurations.
It doesn't leave a lot of uncertainty.
Here's a time to reinforcements now. Oh man, what a beating! Even though, I mean, Timely Reinforcements is the card that brings you back from behind, right? It's the card that gets you ahead when you're behind. Sergio Garcia Gonzalez is getting ahead while ahead.
It's really not fair.
I mean, what's the only thing better than winning, Simon? It's winning more. That's why I love those. You know, that's why we call them win more cards. That's why they're the best cards in Magic.
Yeah.
I mean, Timely Reinforcements it's not a win more card. It's a lose less card. But here it's doing its best impersonation of one, because I tell you what, look at this. 6 life, a couple more creatures as well. And Garcia Gonzalez just running rings around Andrade here.
Andrade did find an Inkmoth Nexus, if I saw that correctly. So I think that could be, let's say, the
last best hope of the Portuguese player.
The final hope.
Yeah.
And you don't have much of a choice, because there's a Field of Ruin, there's a Celestial Colonnade. If you ever get the shot, and it's unlikely that you do, you would just have to immediately go for it. Pray that there's no path to exile, because I don't see you winning the game if Jace gets activated a few more times.
Sergio Garcia Gonzalez sitting pretty with all of those creatures in play, in addition to an active Jace. Teferi in hand. Double Teferi, in fact. Supreme Verdict and Logic not for him.
I did like how he just dropped the Inkmoth Nexus on the battlefield as if it was a forest.
Don't pay no attention to the land on your screen. Jace the Mind Sculptor coming under attack here. I don't think this is going to be a particularly fruitful one, although that Pendlehaven does make things a little bit more difficult when it comes to Gonzalez blocking.
Yeah, Gonzalez was actually playing around Pendlehaven the turn before, double blocking with 2 zombies, and I was expecting something similar, but...
Well, this is the easiest Pendlehaven activation in the history of Magic.
Not a big fan of that block.
No, Professor Binns can add that to his notebook, because that is the simplest activation of that card I've ever seen. You're blocking my 1/1 with your 2/2. Well, I'll give it +1/+2. Those numbers. Even I can calculate those numbers, Simon.
Maybe Gonzalez is actually already planning to Supreme Verdict. But at least Andrade will get a growing handback worker out of the deal.
So, Field of Ruin now. He's going to take out that Inkmoth Nexus, and of course Colourless floated, and here's a forest. So yes, Simon, you're right in saying that Hangerback Walker can be grown by 1 counter here with the 1 mana that's already floating.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see if that's what Andrade wants to do, because that Supreme Verdict is going to be at least a little bit ameliorated by the impact of Hangerback Walker. Yep. Up she goes to 2 there, and another little servo as well coming to join the party. Back to Garcia Gonzalez now, with his Jace online, Teferi in hand, 2 of. And that Supreme Verdict we talked about, Simon. Is now time to pull the trigger? Perhaps it is.
I think if you want to do that, you minus Jace on Hangerback. Because you don't want all of these artifacts to turn into Thopter tokens.
Look at this. Simon Gertzen, you can buy me a lottery ticket this week, because your speculation turns out to be future truths.
Mm-hmm.
Easy game.
And it was one of, thousands of possible plays.
One of thousands of possible plays that could have been made there. Here's the Supreme Verdict. Disappointed not to see the attack with the soldiers. Just to see. Mm-hmm. Just in case. Maybe they don't block. You don't know. But no, as it is, just a Jace on 1 counter and nothing doing for Andrade.
Sergio did that in one of the previous rounds and got his draw. So he stopped messing around.
Yeah, he stopped. Yeah, okay. Stopped chancing his arm there. All right. Well, Garcia Gonzalez here in a commanding position. Andrade, Hangerback Walker, Arcbound Ravager, all business, and then the rest of it, all stinkers. Double Nature's Claim Welding Jar doing stone cold nothing on this board. Man, that's a beating though, eh?
This game has been a lot closer and a lot more dynamic because it definitely felt like the Hardened Skills deck was in it, but it still demonstrated the difficulty of the matchup for the Hardened Skills player.
Logic not now. Hangback Walker not going to resolve. Logic not going to resolve this time around. And here is Arcbound Ravager. Picks up a counter and a little servo as well, thanks to the animation module. And Simon, you talked about the animation module being an important threat, and even though it hasn't been the highest impact threat, it's still a thorn in the side of Garcia Gonzalez.
It just sticks around, and every time Andrade starts reloading with any kind of creature, it's usually coming with a +1/+1 counter, so you get that first servo, then you're threatening to activate for 3, and it's a one-man army if you want.
Yeah, exactly. Very slow, lumbering, but it will get the job done if you're doing nothing. Unfortunately for Andrade, however, Garcia Gonzalez is doing more than nothing as we see 3 more soldiers come into play. Not going to get that 6 life this time. That is my favourite soldier token, generated by... Is it Sergeant at Arms in Dominaria? Speaking of Dominaria, how about the hero thereof? Teferi coming down on a brief respite from standard. You know, it's like when club players go to play in the World Cup in soccer. Yeah. Teferi's now he's been called up. Yeah.
In the over 60 division.
I don't know what Teferi's age is, man.
It's probably more than 100 or
no, but the thing is,
1,000.
his age, like if you were to chart his age on a graph, it'd be like one of the, in cartoons, whenever they put a line graph on, a stock market. It's going up and down and
all
up
the
and down.
time travel and...
Honestly, it just looked like a strand of spaghetti.
It's a little bit like astronauts that age more or less when they are in space.
Yeah,
kind of like that.
Yeah, that's very true. If you ever needed proof of Einstein's general theory or special theory of relativity, Teferi, hero of Dominaria's aging process is ample evidence thereof, I would say. In any case, big attack now from I'll stop myself there. I'm gonna turn off the autopilot for that one because it's not a big attack, a very small attack in fact. 2 1/1s getting in. I mean, there's no conceivable metric on which that's a big attack. I guess if your opponent's on 1, then you're attacking for 200% of their life total.
A very, very threatening attack all of a sudden.
But Garcia Gonzalez equal to the task, sends in the blockers. And we're going to see the Arcbound Ravager pick up an extra counter here. And another servo gets made.
And I don't have the feeling that Gonzalez is super unhappy about this turn of events. He just wanted these tokens to chump block with 2 active Planeswalkers.
Yeah,
and they are 2 of the best Planeswalkers ever printed.
Yeah, I would say number 1, number 3 in my estimations here.
Number 1, number 2, and number 3.
They're filling all 3 slots. They're that good.
Jace gets at least the first 2.
Jace gets the first 2, and then okay, all right. That's a fine call. That's a fine call. But it does mean that Garcia Gonzalez is netting 3 cards a turn. On top of which, I mean, one of those cards comes off of a brainstorm as well. So his hand's just going to look perfect every turn. He's got a Supreme Verdict in hand as well. Things looking very, very good for the Spanish control player here. Esper Charm as well. Not a card we see too often. Simon?
No.
All its modes, go.
Target player discards 2 cards. Target player draws 2 cards. Destroy target enchantment.
He's too good. He's just too good. He's too good, ladies and gentlemen.
I messed up the order, though.
No points. Nul point.
And it's not even target player draws 2 cards. I thought...
You can't force your opponent to draw 2 cards. Boo. Esper Charm. Actually unplayable. Here's Supreme Verdict now. Again, no chancing it with the with a little dodgy attack with the soldier there. Welding Jar can keep something around, Simon. It's going to regenerate that Arcbound Ravager.
And that's not bad. That is actually kind of a nice little... I don't want to call it combo, but it is a nice protection from Supreme Verdict, punishing those control players that are not going for a Wrath of God.
Yes. Welding Jar laughs in the face of a Wrath of God, of course. But these servos are also going to make this Arcbound Ravager into a very realistic threat. Now, it remains to be seen whether Garcia Gonzalez has a handy answer to it. Worst case scenario, can tuck it with Teferi, unsummon it with Jason. That's going to take the pressure down considerably, but I'm sure there's a wealth of options in terms of how to deal with it. And Snapcaster Mage certainly one of them. We might see a path to exile here.
This is a nice play. We are going to see Ravager Grown, animation module triggers, and at least you get a really big servo out of the deal.
Right, I like that. That's very much a symptom of fancy placing.
Esper Charm that.
Oh dear, so a little servo there. Of course, just as susceptible.
Oh, he is Esper Charming it. No.
No. Discard those 2 plain pieces of cardboard you have in your hand, my friend. Discard those 2 bookmarks. And now, this servo, of course, chump blocked by the Snapcaster Mage, and either an unsummon or a tuck ability, I would say, in its near future. Of course, much more potent against the token.
So, I actually had gotten the feeling that Sergio just wanted to win this game by ultimating Teferi. All the chump blocking certainly makes me think that that's the course of action. So, sacrificing your Jace is not great, but it would be an option. If there's really a Cryptic Command in his hand as well, then it's going to be an even easier time.
But Fatal Push.
I think that's probably when you can very seriously consider conceding here.
Yeah, I mean, Andrade, of course, there's no game 3 here if he concedes, and there's an argument to be made that he should be playing until the final whistle sounds. But I mean, come on, man. There's a bunch of burger places and stuff. You can go get yourself coffee outside, or I don't know. At this stage, this one does look to be in the books, Simon.
Yeah, if your time has value.
If your time has value. I mean, maybe João Andrade is just happy to be there, basking in the warm glow of the limelight. But Sergio Garcia Gonzalez got this one locked up, you'd think. Active Jace, active Teferi, no threats to speak of here.
2 Celestial Colonnades to potentially just block with.
Yep.
To protect your Teferi.
Yep.
Cryptic Command, incredible. Maybe bounce a servo.
No, tuck the animation module away. Simon, look at that. Respect is earned, not given.
We're in it for the long run.
Yeah, we're in for the long run here. Garcia Gonzalez enjoying every laborious minute of this game win, it has to be said. Here is a Hangerback Walker in hand for Andrade. It's just been joined by another card.
That's a Throne of Geth.
Very useful card against all of the... no, okay, well, never mind. Very useful card against all of the Chalice of the Void lists, amongst many others, of course. But the Cryptic Command, counter your Hangerback Walker, kill your token. Oh, and I've still got 2 active Planeswalkers? Oops! Esper Control with this game in an absolute headlock. In an Ezekiel, I would say. It's got 0 chance of getting out here. Slowly being choked out. And we'll see Andrade tap out pretty quickly, I would imagine. Well, actually, maybe not. Maybe he's just really good at holding his breath. In comes the Celestial Colonnade across for 4. First blood, Simon.
Yep.
For Sergio Garcia Gonzalez.
4 more turns.
If we even get that far.
We might actually see the legendary double Colonnade attack.
Oh, as spoken of old, Simon. Andrade rips an Inkmoth Nexus, I think that was. And Garcia Gonzalez is getting that mana ready for a big swing for 8 in the air. Please, cut my deck, sir. Please, draw me to those good cards. Oh, look at that. That is not the face of a happy man, Simon. That is the face of a man who is staring down a 10-3-1 record late into day 2 of Mythic Championship London. Here live from the United Kingdom. Riley Knights, my name. Simon Gertzen is your name. And it's great to have your company, exalted viewer from around the world, wherever you are. Certainly do appreciate you tuning in this weekend. Live coverage of this modern event. Been an absolute blast so far. Of course, the party don't stop. We've got 2 more days, or a day and a half more at least, of modern action. Top 8 coming to you live tomorrow starting 9 a.m. You're not going to want to miss it. In comes the Celestial Colonnade. Let's see what Andrade can find. He finds Animation Module. What a shock. Stars and Moon. Who would have thunk it? And with an Inkmoth Nexus in hand, it looks like he is really in a world of pain, Simon. I mean, there's nothing. There's nothing here, right? There's nothing here.
No.
All right, Field of Ruin is going to take out that Inkmoth Nexus, so no chump blocks next turn. Is that the requisite 12 mana required for double Celestial Colonnade?
One was missing, but I guess Field of Ruin doesn't actually generate a mana. If Sergio plays...
He just shows me his hand. He's like, buddy, look, I still got all these.
They got so far, and then they don't finish it.
Pack it up. Pack it up. And the victory goes to Sergio Garcia Gonzalez in very convincing fashion. He never really broke a sweat in either Game 1 or Game 2.